Hello, viewers. Welcome to Sightline. We have with us today a young and dynamic Nandini Piramal, the chairperson at Piramal Pharma Limited, as our guest. Responsible for setting strategy and driving results at the company, she is formally qualified for the job with an MBA from Stanford Graduate School of Business. But Nandini has also had a front seat to business since she was a child, with her parents Ajay Piramal and Swati Piramal guiding the Piramal group. And I'm sure those practical insights gave her a unique business sense, and it's great to see Nandini blaze her own path in India's evolving pharma landscape. Just to give you a brief background to the company, after selling its domestic formulations business in 2010, which was over half of its sales at the time, to Abbott for $3.8 billion, the conglomerate Piramal Group has rebuilt its pharma operations. It now has a three-pronged business model with Piramal Pharma Solutions, which is its CDMO arm, Piramal Critical Care or Complex Hospital Generics, also known as CHG, within the company, and India Consumer Healthcare or the OTC business. So here we bring in the person who does it all. Welcome, Nandini.
Thank you for having me, Veba.
I think we have a fruitful discussion ahead of us. So let me shoot the first question to you. The proposed BioSECURE Act has been in the eye of a storm as far as Chinese CRDMOs like the Wuxi Group and the complete genomics companies are concerned. However, analysts don't expect a great windfall for Indian CDMOs very soon, with the act viewed more as an acceleration of the existing China Plus strategy. So we would like your view on this. What do you think?
So the BioSECURE Act, I will say, has been passed by the House of Representatives in the US. It hasn't been passed by the Senate.
Right.
So that's just first. Now, when it will be passed, who knows, right? But I think the things about the act is that, yes, it does name some Chinese companies, but it gives customers quite a long time to transition. So I think the date of transition was 2030 or 2032.
32, yeah.
32. So it's 7 years. But I think what it does mean is that for anybody who is buying from China, that they have to have a plan B, right? They have to at least start thinking about, in terms of time and cost and money, what is it they need to look. Now, some of them may say, look, I may want to go back to the US and reshore. Some of them may say that I want to go to India. And in a way, it works for us because we have manufacturing facilities in the US, UK, as well as in India. So for us, it's like we will help our customers solve the problems that they need. And we're not necessarily linked to only one geography. We'll say, tell us what you want, we'll help you do. All right. So I think that is the benefit. But I think overall, I think everyone needs a plan. I think what we've seen a number of inquiries up there, and we've also seen people thinking about what is the plan B. I agree with some of the analysts is that the outcome is not yet known, right?
Yeah.
The impact is still not known because the folks are, it's not yet passed. They still have time. So I think everyone's still waiting and watching.
Yeah, that's right. But as you said, it's important to have a plan B, so that you don't know, you're not caught unprepared.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in this context, I had recently done a story, and I looked through Evaluate Pharma data, which is also a group company of Northstella Group. And I found that Indian CRDMOs are present in every product modality. As expected, though, small molecules dominate the offering. And I'm aware that Piramal has built an early advantage in ADCs. So how does the company stand in relation to other leaders in ADCs? And are there any other product modalities where the Piramal Group or Piramal Pharma Solutions has a significant presence?
So I think Piramal has been in ADCs for a long time, and we've built up a lot of knowledge both in the development and commercialization and manufacturing of the ADCs. We were actually part of the team that was responsible for the first ADC that was ever approved. So I think that's, and that's been a long time. So we've, again, as I said, got a lot of knowledge. And recently, in the last couple of years, we've actually expanded our facility in Grangemouth in Scotland to handle even bigger batches and more commercial work. So I think we've seen a good, I think we are very much up there amongst the leaders of the ADCs. And we've actually, with our associate company, Yapan Bio, now we actually offer the end-to-end services. So we would do the MAB manufacturer in India. We would do the conjugation in Grangemouth and then the fill finish in Lexington facility. That's another area of sterile finish with isolator-based technology that we've seen a lot of demand for. And again, if you think about it, a lot of people are doing the sterile injectables, especially in the US. They want to keep it closer to home. And we just actually announced an $80 million expansion that we've just kicked off there. So we see that's a very exciting area for us. The other exciting area for us is peptides. With our Turpay facility, we've again developed a specialization there, and so that's something that we're excited about.
Right. So since you spoke about a few of these modalities, also overlooking overall, what is Piramal Pharma's strategic vision, and what is the growth trajectory going to be for the next 5 years?
So we actually just talked a little bit about it, but as Piramal Pharma overall, and this is combining all three businesses, over the next 5 years, we actually want to triple EBITDA. So to make that 3 times, we want to, and that means double revenue. And we actually want to keep our debt at 1 times EBITDA. So I think for us, those are the things that ultimately at the end of 5 years will be a $2 billion company with about 25% EBITDA. That's the kind of aim we're looking for.
Okay. And so the CDMO business itself is evolving, under PPL. It is evolving from a traditional CMO to an integrated CMO. You just spoke about your bio also. So what are the steps you're taking in this direction?
I think over the last few years, one of the things that we've been focusing a lot on is development revenue, and by extension also on patent revenue. Last year, for the first time, over 50% of our revenue was on patent, and that includes discovery, development, as well as commercial on patent. And what happens is when you focus on development revenue, eventually when those molecules end up becoming commercial, you at least continue to get a share of the pie. No customer will ever be solely sourced, because again, in these days of supply chain resilience, etc., it's risky. So they'll dual source, but you actually, because you're performing well, you get a larger share of it. So I think that's one of the things that we're focusing on and making us a little bit different, is this focus on patent and development leading to on-patent commercial revenue. I think that's for us a very good thing. Our integrated play, I think, is also very exciting because I think customers want lesser complexity. It makes simpler, quicker for the customers rather than managing, 3 places. We can do it in one. So I'll give you one example. We had a customer in the US, and they were doing a project, and then they were like, the input is delayed from their side. And we're like, can we help you with it? And they're like, this is the input. And they're like, their initial other CDMO was, causing issues with them. And we just said, well, we can't do it. So therefore we'll have to push the project. We're like, well, we can try and make it for you. So as a result, then they came to our Digwal facility and are kind of working there. So for us, we're seeing a lot of interesting work in integrated, which is customers that come over more than one site. And it could be just, it could be doing the intermediate and the final API, or it could be East and West collaboration also.
Part of this, it's part of increasing your CDMO revenues. I believe the target is to double it by 2030. So
Yeah.
what are the threats and opportunities that you foresee on this journey?
I think, see, one of the opportunities, as we mentioned, we have a large number, I think it's 37, if I'm not mistaken, number of phase 3 molecules. If even half of them go commercial, that means your on-patent revenue will increase. And I think that's a good opportunity for us. I think our integrated play, again, is a good opportunity because it gets you visibility it makes things easier for the customer and gives you visibility also into the supply chain. And it makes it harder for people to leave. And I think third is, if you do a good job with your customers, they often give you more projects elsewhere. So if you think about it, our biggest win rate is for the next step of the same project, right? Then the next biggest win rate is the same customer but a different project in the same place. And then the third biggest win rate is new customer, same customer, different project, different site. The hardest is to win a customer for the first time. But if you've done work with them and pleased them, they're more willing to give you a chance elsewhere.
Okay. So again, in the context of geographical spread, what is your current mix like, and how much do you expect business from the US to go up, given that you're doing an expansion right now, as you mentioned at the beginning, the Lexington site. So how much do you expect the business from the US to go up over the next 5 and possibly say the next 10 years?
So the biggest customers are US customers, right? Because that's where a lot of pharma innovation is happening. And that's a lot where the mid-size and emerging biopharma exist. So, I mean, I would say about 70% of our sales overall as Piramal will go to developed markets, which would be the US, Europe, as well as, Japan. And then the rest of it's sort of a rest of world and India. So it is a mix, but I think the hard part is to say, look, for me, I can't definitely say that, okay, I'd say US customers will continue to be our biggest customers, right? And that's because that's obviously where the largest pharma market of the world is. I think it's a mix for some people, for certain types of products, example, high value cancer drugs that are high potent, sterile injectables that again again, in smaller lots that are on patent. Those kind of things are still being made in the US. But for things that need, tons and tons of material, those are happening more in India and also perhaps China. It'll be a mix and it'll depend on what products are out there. Because if you think about it, in the business a few years ago, a lot of innovation was happening in cancer and orphan drugs and those kind of things. And obviously when the GLP-1s came in, everyone refocused on metabolic diseases and with obesity. So I think there will be swings.
Right. So have you seen an interest, have you seen any recent requests for procurement, participation, etc., from GLP-1 or, obesity kind of companies, pursuing therapies in these areas?
They're always, I think there's always interest in these things is how I would put it.
Okay. So we know that ESG has been a big, part of the decision-making process for clients, especially in CDMOs. So, and they're increasingly, it's being seen as a non-negotiable. So assume a stake acquisition in CleanMax that Piramal made.
It's a stake acquisition in a captive solar.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
So it's not a It's not a stake acquisition in CleanMax. Does that make sense?
Okay, just in the project.
So it's
set up a separate SPV for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
so our focus, see, we're a pharma company. Our focus is on our own business. We're not a renewable energy company, though they've done really well. It's an SPV for a particular pharma plant, and we've done an equity investment into that SPV.
Okay, great. So, is there anything else on the ESG agenda that you would like to talk about?
Overall, the way we do take ESG seriously, some of our customers have said that, look, if we're not, don't take it seriously, we're not on their vendor list. So, for example, we actually signed and made targets and promises with the Science-Based Targets Initiative. It's a nonprofit that is working with companies to try and reduce global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. So as a company, when you actually do give your data and your targets, your aspirational targets, they actually ask you a lot of questions. They ask you, and kind of when they're validating the targets. So it's not an easy process to actually go through. And our targets got accepted by the SBTi last month. And we're actually planning to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. I think scope 1 and scope 2, I think, is by 43%, 42% by 2030, and a scope 3 emissions by about 25% by 2030. So those are pretty stiff targets, but we do have plans in place on how at least we're going to achieve the scope 1 and scope 2. And I think a lot of it is switching over to renewables and captive solar power, especially in India. I think that makes a huge difference. And I think as hopefully more states allow companies to do captive solar power, I think you can actually move faster on that journey.
Right. So as you're saying, not just ESG, but also manufacturing is becoming a big part of, the government's agenda under Make in India, etc. And a lot of other pharma segments have seen in the incentive schemes, production-linked incentive schemes, PLI, etc. So has this segment, the CDMO segment, spoken to the government about extending any incentives here?
I mean, I agree. So the PLI scheme doesn't work right now for the CDMO industry because I think it was based on the number of ANDAs or, that was one of the criteria for investment. And I think a lot of people are still continuing to talk to them to try and get them to think a little differently.
Okay. So if you've spoken quite a bit about the CDMO business so far.
Yeah.
So how do you intend taking the consumer healthcare division forward? How do you intend expanding markets and differentiating the offering there?
So I think we have a bunch of great products, our power brands, whether it's Lacto, Calamine, or Littles, or even the iPill, are actually leaders in their own areas. I think we've been primarily selling through e-commerce, modern trade, as well as chemist shops. I think we want to continue to expand distribution to the general trade, as well as supermarkets and other things like that. So I think we've got good products at a great price and a good proposition for the Indian consumer. So that's something I'm quite excited about.
Okay, so the one that we have not spoken about so far is the CHG segment. So what does the future there look like, and what is the approach there to evolve and adapt to a changing market?
Again, in the complex hospital generics business, we have a very strong foundation with inhalation anesthetics. We're 40% approximate market share in the US, but we don't have, we're not as strong in other markets. We've actually we've created a plant in India, Digwal facility, which will come online next next financial year. And that is so that will allow us to work with some of the other markets where we didn't have capacity to serve. So we are looking at growing our market share outside the US especially. We're also looking at adding new products, both specialty and otherwise, through in-licensing or acquisition as a way to grow our portfolio.
Okay. So I guess we can wrap that up here now. It was great talking to you, Nandini.
Thank you.
Wish you the best.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for participating.
Thanks.